Thank you. I'm Zach Ryan, Program Officer with Senior Corps for the Corporation for National and Community Service. And with us today moderating is going to be Patty Stengel, who is also a Program Officer with Senior Corps. So to get us started, you can see that I'm logged in here to eGrants, but I'm going to show you a couple of documents that I think will be helpful for you to have with you in this session, and also when you sit down to actually complete your work plans in eGrants. The first are to have some form of your work plans. And this is the answer key along with the work plans from the previous session. It's going to be helpful to have these because you'll see when we get to sections like the community need, you'll be able to just copy and paste some of the information. And the second thing I think you should have are these worksheets. So hopefully when you completed the last session, at the end, there were worksheets. And the same with the supplemental activity that was intended to follow the last session. If you completed the worksheets, these are the answers that you should have. So I am going to go back to eGrants. And this session is for both the Senior Companion projects and for foster grandparents. I'm going to start with the Senior Companion because it's kind of a simpler work plan model. So from eGrants, I simply click on the work plan link. A new link will pop up in the center of my screen that says click here to enter work plan. I click on that, and this will open up the eGrants performance module. You can see here that there are some screen instructions on the left side of the screen. Those exist on every page. However, if you'd like for them to go away so that you simply have a little bit more real estate on the screen itself, you can do that. I start by clicking Begin. And for the Senior Companion program, it takes me directly to the Performance Measures tab. So the first thing I have to do is to select my category title. I only have two choices here. I can either select Independent Living and Respite Care, which is my 90%, or the work plans that fall into the National Performance Measures. Or I select Other, which is the 10% measured in my unduplicated volunteers that I'm allowed to place outside of the National Performance Measures. I'm going to select Independent Living because I'm going to work on the 90% first. And I only have one objective in the Senior Companion program, and that's aging in place. So even though some of your work plans may be respite care, all of that falls under the aging in place objective in the strategic plan. So I select aging in place. Then I come to the place where I enter my community need. And since I've already completed my worksheets, I can simply copy and paste the community need into that field. And then I have to select my output. So I'm just going to go back to my worksheet that I've completed, and I see in this particular work plan, I have output H13. I will select that from the drop-down menu. I'll select my instrument. And you can see, even though we have not done so here, there is a place where you could actually circle your output instrument. I'm going to select Client Tracking Database in this case. And then I'm asked to enter an instrument description. And you see that there's a red asterisk here telling me that this is a required field. So I am required to enter an instrument description. And I know because we have application instructions, or we will have, that will tell me what exactly I am to enter into that field. And for the application, for the instrument description, I need to enter who is going to collect the information, from whom, and when will they collect it. Rather than take the time to type all of that in there, I'm simply going to type test, which brings me down to the outcome field. So I could look back to my sheet and see that I selected outcome H14 for this particular work plan. But in the Senior Companion program, there's only one outcome option for each output. So I simply select the outcome, select the instrument. Again, here I only have one choice because I'm required to use the Senior Corps survey. and then again explain a little bit about who's going to collect the information, who they're going to collect it from, and what the timing is, or when they will collect it. So then this is down to the service activities, which is the first place where I really have to make some serious choices in doing this for the Senior Companion Program. You can see that I have 4 service activities here that are possible for a respite work plan. Now, I can select as many of these service activities as I like. However, you have to keep in mind that every service activity that you select is actually going to generate a separate work plan. So we talked a little bit about this in the last session for Senior Companions. You don't necessarily have to separate your companionship work plan from your companionship at VA work plan, but there's that option. It just gives you the opportunity to provide a greater level of detail if you are able and you want to do that. The other choice here is we know that a lot of companions provide both companionship and transportation and other services, and you really just determine where you think you have the greatest impact, and that's where you're going to create a work plan. Again, I can create a companionship work plan and a transportation work plan and place unduplicated volunteers in each one, but I'm not required to do so. If they are all providing companionship, I could simply choose companionship if I feel like that helps me demonstrate the impact that my project has. In this case, I'm going to look back at my worksheet, and it is companionship. So I'll select companionship, and then I'm going to click Add PM. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not. I skipped a field. Right here where it says description, this is where I'm going to put my service activity description. Now it looks like it's a small field, but it actually has just as much space as the community need field up here. So now is when it's helpful for me to have my actual work plans. And this text may not match exactly what I want it to say, but I wanted to illustrate how to get this information into the system. So I'm just going to copy it and then paste it. And you can paste by simply using Control-V. And you can see that there's a lot more text in there than I thought was possible just by looking at the size of this field. Then I click Add PM. And you can see that I've created a line here at the top of the page. It says complete, which shows me that I have created one set of work plans. And I say set because in this case it's one, but had I selected multiple service activities, I would actually have more than one work plan. So I'm going to continue with my independent living, aging in place work plans, and I'll go through a little bit more quickly this time. Going down to work plan E. Copying my community need. In this case, I know that it's output H8. I again select my instrument and enter my instrument description. Select my outcome. Provide the instrument and instrument description. And then back to the service activity. So I'm going to refer back to my list. And again, my activity was companionship. The same applies, however. If they're providing companionship and transportation, that's my decision as a project and my sponsor's decision about where we want to demonstrate our impact or where we think we have the greatest impact. And again, I could copy the service activity description from, if the activity really is the same from my old work plans, I could just copy it. If it needs a little tweaking, however, I think I should be willing to do that, and you should be willing to tweak them just a little bit to fit the new national performance measures. However, in the Senior Companion Program, it's likely that there are many activities that will continue very much as they have. So now I have 2 work plans. I know that I have one more from this activity. It's in the other category. And for the other category, and remember these are activities that are allowable activities for senior companions to be engaged in, but they do not fit into the national performance measures. So I have one output, which is simply the number of other older adults and individuals with disabilities served. So these are other activities that are allowable for senior companions to do, but they do not fit with the national performance measures. And we won't report this as a performance measure. We're really just collecting this information for our own needs. And you can see that there is no outcome option here. And then for my service activity, it's simply serving non-veterans or serving veterans. Again, if I'm serving at a VA hospital and it's easy for me or fairly easy to collect that information, I can choose to report a veterans work plan and a non-veterans work plan. Otherwise, I will just put non-veterans for everything. So non-veterans is either I know they're non-veterans or I don't know if they are or not. And the last thing I need is my service activity description. And I click Add PM. So now I have done everything to create the actual work plans for my project. So I click on the Next button. So now is when I actually start assigning my volunteers to work plans. And I think this is where the worksheets come in really handy. So I know from the activity that my project's total number of unduplicated volunteers is 20. So I enter that at the top, and you can see I have a little calculator here that tells me I still have to place 20 volunteers because I have not yet placed any unduplicated volunteers in work plans. A couple of things on this screen that you can do if you think, output H13, what exactly is that? I can simply mouse over it. It will show me not the full text, but enough of it so that I can remember what that output and outcome are. So, and even though it doesn't go in this order, I like to do the unduplicated volunteers first because I think that's kind of the hard part. So I look back at my sheet, and I go back up to Work Plan D, which is my respite work plan. And I can see that I have 11 unduplicated volunteers and 11 total volunteers. So, and I'll talk just for a second about what the difference is. So for the purposes of unduplicated volunteers, that's where we calculated in the activity in the previous session, where every volunteer can be included in only one work plan. That's as an unduplicated volunteer. So the question came up, so if I have a volunteer who serves in in-home placement and then also serves, say, in an assisted living facility, where do I count that person? And the answer is you count that person as an unduplicated volunteer in the work plan that fits the national performance measure, so the in-home placement. However, that person will also show up as a total volunteer contributing in your other work plan. So it's highly likely that you're going to end up with an other work plan that has a very small number of unduplicated volunteers, but perhaps a much larger number of total volunteers contributing. So I can continue with my number of volunteer stations, which is 8. My output target, which is actually going to be the number of caregivers to whom I provide service. In this case, it's going to be 18. My outcome target was 15. And you can see as I've entered the unduplicated volunteers, it's calculated for me. I still have to place 11, or I've placed 11 so far, which tells me I still have 9 to place. So I'm going to go back to this sheet and just quickly complete the rest of the information. So you can see I only actually have one unduplicated volunteer in my other work plan, but I have 10 total volunteers because some of these other people are serving more than one client clearly, and some are in the national performance measures and some are not. So the total number of unduplicated volunteers I've entered here equals my total number of unduplicated volunteers. Unduplicated volunteers, when you get down to it, are people. So I have 20 people. I have placed them all in work plans as unduplicated volunteers. My total volunteers contributing does not have to equal my unduplicated volunteer total, and in fact, it should be greater than my unduplicated volunteer total. So I think I've entered all of my information except my volunteer stations, and I'm just going to make up a number here. And my output target. I click Review Allocations, and the system is going to tell me if I've satisfied all of the rules. And Senior Companion, it's really just checking to see that I have no more than 10% in that non-national performance measures work plan. So it tells me all rules are satisfied. I click Next. It brings me to a summary page, which gives me a breakdown of my unduplicated volunteers by objective. It'll tell me the percentage. If I hover over it, will tell me the actual number of unduplicated volunteers. By category title, this is my 90% versus my 10%. You can see I'm doing fine here because I'm actually at 95. And then percentage of volunteers working on outcomes versus non-outcomes. In Senior Companions, this should always be the same as this because the 90%, they have to be outcome-based work plans. Something else I can do from this page, I can scroll through and see all of my work plans. You see that one is open at a time. I can click another one. It will collapse the previous one and open up and show me my work plan. I can click Edit Performance Measures. It'll take me back to edit them. I can print this particular measure. Or I can go up here and click Print PDF and see a PDF that will be all of my work plans. So it starts with the charts and then goes through my work plans. So Patty, I'm going to stop for a few minutes now and see if there are any questions coming in about the Senior Companion version.
Question right now. The question is, when I am logged into eGrants, I don't see screen instructions. How do I change that?
Don't see screen instructions. So you should You know what, that is a good question. I don't know why you wouldn't see them, but that's something that we can look into.
This person may want to send another question with more details so we can help answer the question, but one possible option is that you're looking at other parts of eGrants. The screen instructions are only in the new performance measure module. So if you're looking in the old performance measures, or if you're looking at the narrative, the budget, it doesn't quite look the way this particular module does.
Yeah, and also I know if you close it down, it will completely go away, but if you switch tabs and then come back to that tab, it will reappear. Is that the only question, Patty?
That's the only question so far.
Okay. So then I'm going to go, the final step would be from the summary tab, from the, it's on the summary tab, to click Validate Performance Measures at the bottom. One thing to look out for is there's a scroll bar here, but sometimes you also have to use the scroll bar on the side of your web browser. So my performance measures are validated, and I could click to go back to the eGrants application, and it will bring me back to my eGrants application. But what I'm going to do now is actually go into a foster grandparent grant application, because it's slightly more complicated. So I get there the same way by clicking on Work Plan, click to enter Work Plan. I click Begin. And so you see I have a screen that I did not have in the Senior Companion version. And that's because all of the Senior Companion activities take place in one focus area, and that's Healthy Futures. So for foster grandparents, I actually have the opportunity for economic opportunity or education work plans. So I'm going to take a minute and pull up my same materials for foster grandparents. And I'll start, I'm going to go ahead and copy the community need. And so I know my first work plan uses ED2, so it's education. I know that I have to select education as a focus area, but what about my objectives? So I know it says number of students that completed participation in the CNCS-supported K through 12 education program. So my objective for this work plan is K through 12 success. But before I move to the next screen, I'm going to select all of the objectives where I'm going to place volunteers. So one problem that we see people have fairly frequently is they check objectives here and then they do not create work plans for them later, and then they can't submit their application. So it's important to keep in mind that if you select any of these objectives, the system will actually make you create a work plan for that objective. I have 3 work plans in this activity. This one is number of disadvantaged youth mentor matches. It says it's 4th through 12th grade. That's going to be the same objective. That's going to be K through 12 success. School readiness would be anything that's pre-kindergarten. And then I have ED 29. And so I know another document that's helpful to have are the performance measures instructions, which will provide a chart with all of the outputs and outcomes by objective. This one, ED 29, is in the other education objective. So I've selected 2 objectives. I click Next, and then I get to a familiar screen, which is the same screen that I used for building the work plans in the Senior Companion program. And everything else from here on out is the same. So for my education, I'm going to start with my education outcomes 75%. This objectives list is populated based on the choices I made on the previous screen. I enter my community need, and then I select my output. In this case, it was ED2, and it's going to have an outcome of ED5. So I will select ED2, select my instrument. Again, I'll enter my instrument description and indicate who's collecting the information, when are they going to collect it, who are they collecting it from, and then my outcome. Same with the instrument. And then again, I have the same choices here for selecting service activities. Each service activity, keep in mind, is going to generate a separate work plan. So while it's not required that I separate my faith-based school work plan from my public school work plan from other tutoring, it's an option. We know that many people may ask, well, how many of those are faith-based schools? Helpful for us when people come to us and say, well, of those children that the foster grandparents tutored, how many were in public schools versus faith-based schools? So it gives us that option. However, understanding that this is a transitionary period, it's certainly not required that you separate your work plans in that way right now. So in this case, mine are public schools. I enter my service activity description, which I'm going to pull from my old work plan. Unless, of course, it needs to be tweaked a little bit. In this case, I don't think it does. I click Add PM, and I create a line at the top of the page. I can move on to my other work plan. And again, I'll go through this one more quickly.
And Zach, we have had another question come in. Can you elaborate on where to find the requirements for the instrument description and the service activity description?
Yes. So when we issue application instructions, and Patty, remind me, have we issued those yet for FGP and SCP?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe you would be better at answering this question than I would.
Well, you're on the right track. The answer can be found in the application instructions. And for FGP and SCP, it's you can find particular information on page 19 of the grant application instructions. Page 18 describes the service activity. So it says, say who the beneficiaries are, what the volunteers will be doing with the beneficiaries. Say how often volunteers will provide the service and for how long. Say where the service will take place. So that's what the information that needs to be in the service activity section. For the instrument description, looking again, let's see. I'm going to continue to search for that one, and I will come back with an answer in just a minute.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to continue entering work plans.
So I found it. So it's in the grant application instructions again. So basically for the instrument description, you're going to give the name of the instrument and then briefly describe who will collect the data and from whom and when it will be collected.
Thank you. And where can people find the application instructions?
You can find them at nationalservice.gov. If you go to Build Your Capacity, and then you'll find Build Your Capacity on the top. It's one of the blue boxes at the top of the nationalservice.gov website. Once you click on that, you'll click on Grants, which you'll be able to find on the left side of the screen. Almost.
So I'll just show it really quickly. Nationalservice.gov.
Mm-hmm. You'll click on Build Your Capacity up there at the top. And then Grants on the left side where the arrow is. And then Managing Senior Corps Grants, again on the left. And then if you scroll down on this page about halfway, you see RSVP Senior Corps Grant Application, the PDF. And then right under that, FGP and SCP Senior Corps Grant Application.
So this is the document. Thank you, Patty. So I'm going to go back into eGrants and finish my work plans. I've completed my 2 work plans for the 75%. I now have my 1 work plan left that's going to be in the 25% that I can have for, again, other activities that don't necessarily fit with the national performance measures that have outcomes in this case. So for the foster grandparent program, they're all national performance measures. But this up to 25% is in case there is no outcome for a particular measure, or in case maybe you can't report outcomes yet for a particular school. You could actually choose some of the same outputs, but elect not to report on the outcomes at this time. So I'm going to select Other Education. And in this case, I do not have an outcome. There's not one available for ED 29. click Add PM, and I should have created all of my work plans now where I can move to the Targets tab and start assigning my volunteers. I know again from the activity I have small project, I have 20 volunteers. In work plan F, I have 3 unduplicated volunteers and 6 total volunteers. Again, you can see the calculator at the top updating as I enter my volunteers, telling me that I have to place 15 in my agency-wide education outcomes. So far I have placed 0, so 15 volunteers have to end up in these top 2 work plans eventually. And also that I've placed 3 volunteers, I still have 17 to place. So I go to my next. It's going to be 6 unduplicated and 10 total. Looks like I have 11 unduplicated and 11 total in my other work plan. So now I have 20 total unduplicated volunteers. I have placed 20. I have 0 to place. I must place 15 in the 75%, and I have placed 17. So I know I'm good. Then I enter my output and outcome targets for each. And then my volunteer stations. I can click Review Allocations. It tells me that all the rules have been satisfied, so I know I can move on to the summary. And I can, again, view where I have placed my volunteers. I can view each individual work plan, or I can print a PDF of all of my work plans together. Then I'm ready to validate my performance measures. And I can go back to eGrants and continue my application. So, and that's it. That's the eGrant system. So Patty, are there any other questions that people have typed in?
Yes. So the next question is, I've already completed a grant using these performance measures. I noticed that once I committed to 3 work plans, I could now go back and correct or amend the first work plan until I actually completed all 3 of those work plans. Has this been changed?
So let me see if I can kind of recreate the problem. If I had not submitted my application yet, so I assume that's the case, you should be able to, let's see, so what you would have to do, let me create a new work plan. Or start to create one, and then let's try to move tabs. So now I have an open work plan that should be marked as incomplete. So it says complete no in this chart. And I guess you're saying you couldn't enter the targets for any? Is that right, Patty?
She's saying she couldn't go back and make any changes to the other work plans, to the first work plan.
So
until all 3 were completed.
You should be able to, I think. Let's look. If I click on Edit, incomplete. Oh, so she's actually correct. So apparently the system will not let you do that. And so the answer to your question is no, that has not been changed. You would have to either complete this work plan or delete it. So the answer is yes, you have to, once you start a work plan, you have to complete it before you can go back and edit another one.
Okay, and then the next question is, has the rest of the eGrants application stayed the same as before and only the work plan section has changed?
So there may be some minor changes. Patty, you could probably address those better than I could. Are you aware of any other changes to the application?
I think what I would say in response to this question is in eGrants, the major changes to the work plan module to align with the new performance measures. And you'll only see that module if you're doing a renewal application or a competitive application for our SVP. So those are the changes, the big changes you will see in eGrants. As far as the application itself, the application instructions have been completely revamped to align with the National Performance Measure instructions. So as you're working on your application, you'll really want to read those instructions to be sure you're entering the correct information into eGrants.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other questions?
Not at this time. If anyone wants to ask another question, they can click on that select panel. They can enter their question into the Q&A section, and we will address it on this call.
So we'll just wait a couple more minutes to see if anyone does have a question.
So a question has come in asking to review the print options again.
Okay. So, sure, on the Summary tab, the first is Print PDF for all performance measures. And this is going to put all of your performance measures in one PDF document, starting with the summaries, and then it will go through. The system numbers your performance measures for you. So 1.1, the next one should be 2.1. If you had a work plan that had the same community needs, same output outcome, but a different service activity, that should be numbered 1.2. But not important that you understand the numbering system, just trying to explain to you why these numbers are there. And you will get everything by using that Print PDF for all performance measures option. If you go down to an individual work plan, so all of your work plans are here with a line, and if you click on one, it will open up that work plan. You could simply print this measure, and that would print only that one work plan. So those are the print options.
Do you want to also show the option for the full application?
Oh, sure. So if you, from the full application, those work plans will also show up if you print your full application. So,
Review section. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's in the application for federal assistance, the fourth bullet.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, application for federal assistance. You'd click here and print the entire application with the work plans. Are there other questions?
Yes. So the next question is, in FGP and SCP, the number of volunteers varies month to month. Do you calculate the unduplicated number of volunteers by your VSY level?
No. You calculate your unduplicated volunteer numbers based on the number of individuals that you plan to have serving. keep in mind that in the application you are presenting what your plan is. So you want the plan for the total number of individuals who will serve during that period.
Okay, and the next question, it sounds like it's asking about where to find the worksheet and the work plan planning information that was shared.
Okay, on the National Service website, which is nationalservice.gov that Patty was talking about earlier, where you go to build your capacity, and then to grants. And then I believe, Patty, it's also under managing senior corps grants?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. And then I scroll down here and I have the FGP work plan development worksheets as well as the SCP work plan development worksheets. There are also visual instructions for e-grants. So I hope that answers your question.
And the next question is, can you show where all the sample instruments are located?
Okay. So on the National Service Knowledge Network, which I'm very bad at getting to, so it's because I can't type, National Service Resources.org. And in general, this is a good resource for performance measures. So this brings us to the overall National Service Knowledge Network, and you can see there's a scrolling section here at the top with some kind of featured content. You saw the Senior Companion Survey go by. Virtual conference is up there now. Down on the right, if I click Performance Measurement, this will open up the Performance Measures homepage. From here, you can actually look based on the strategic plan goals, goal 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you can start diving down into the performance measures from there. Or you can scroll down here and click on Senior Corps. And I don't know if the question is coming from FGP or SCP, but I'm on the Senior Companion logo here, so I will click there. And I'll show you this one first. So for Healthy Futures, so these are, we talked about the focus areas. The green level here are the focus areas. The objectives are presented next. Then it goes to the actual measures. So we have the output and the outcome listed here. So if there is a sample or required instrument, for example, for H9 for the Senior Companions, I click on that. This actually gives me the instructions for the measure itself. And if there were an available instrument, which there is one for this measure, it's just not here right now for some reason. This is where it would be. So let me show you one that is there for the foster grandparents. So from FGP, I go to Education, and let's look at school readiness, for example. And social emotional development, which is measure ED23. You can see here that I have a sample instrument for social and emotional development. I have a Senior Corps sample school readiness tool, so I have two possibilities here. And actually, these instruments will be discussed more in sessions for the foster grandparent program tomorrow about collecting data. So that's where you find the sample instruments. As you click on a particular measure, when you click on the outcome, it will tell you if there are instruments available. The Senior Companion ones, I suspect, are not there because there is an entire page devoted to the evaluation and implementing performance measures in the Senior Companion program.
Okay, and there are no other questions at this time.
Okay. So I hope you all got some information that you were hoping to get, that you needed from this session. And I hope you enjoy and get some more good information throughout the rest of the virtual conference. So that concludes this session. Thank you.